Right. So this week, there's a lot to unpack. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the shadow because I know I've been in my shadow this last week or two, and I know some of my clients have been as well. When I say shadow, I mean like things getting triggered from childhood, from the past, coming up to the surface to be felt, to be dealt with, so you can move on. Now, I made a video about this on YouTube. It's called something about healing your shadow self, but I want to go into it here with you guys today because it really is so important. And like it's a little bit different to your beliefs. So, as you guys know, you basically are your reality. Like what you embody, you get. And the more I do this work with people, the more I realize how true that is. Like, you need to think about it like you're not getting something external to you. You're getting what you are. You're getting a reflection always of what you're embodying energetically. And every single time that I set a goal or that a client of mine sets a goal, they go down this journey and this path and they're like, okay, yay, let's do it. Let's rewire my beliefs. And then there'll usually be a phase where there's this big kind of purge. And that's not so much like a belief rewiring thing, like that process we would go through where we would be able to identify a limiting thought or a limiting belief and then, work through it and overcome it with a new, more empowering belief. It's more emotional, it's more energetic. It feels really like a whole part of you that you were unaware of comes up to the surface, and it can feel like you're 15 again. It can feel like you're going crazy. It can feel like you have really, really strong emotions just taking over. But I personally have gone through this like 3 or 4 times. I went through it again earlier this week, not as intense as before, but on a lower level. And I was reminded once again of how crazy it is when this happens. It always is followed by some clarity, some shift. So I'm gonna, can you guys see this? Let me know in the chat because I want to use this whiteboard for the first time in here because I feel like I'm always like this trying to explain things, but this is easier. Okay, cool. Perfect. So I drew two stick men, of course, nobody is surprised. This, let's say this is you now. So current self, and then this is you desired self in your desired reality. Oh, let me let Danielle in. Okay. You here and you there are not the same person. If you actually genuinely believed that you here is going to be you there and you knew that, you'd be there. You'd have everything. You wouldn't be chasing anything. So, like, the shift starts happening when you really clock that. Like, chasing outside you and looking for things outside you is not going to get you there. Making the shifts internally is what's going to get you there. When you shift internally to the point that you are fully embodying this version of you, to like the stuff that you're desiring feels natural, normal, and it's not above you anymore, that's when the stuff comes into your experience, okay? So, you basically you can know logically when you think about it whatever goal or whatever desire you have. So let's say for example it's um making 5 figures per month in your business. If you've made 100 bucks in your business so far and you want to make 10 grand, you know that this version of you who's making 10 grand a month and this version of you who's only made your first $100, they're not the same person. And the difference is going to be your beliefs, but it's going to be your energy. And when I say energy, I mean there's going to be certain parts of you that can't come with you to your desire because they don't energetically resonate with that desire. And I know a lot of people get caught up on like, how can I manifest this? How can I manifest that? It will always come back to purging from your energy and purging from your beliefs, the stuff that just doesn't resonate with your desire. So it's more about letting go than it is about like chasing and trying to do things, is what I'm trying to say, okay? So you've got your beliefs and you've got your basically your shadow self, or like these are like energetic blockers. the difference, I've been trying to like put words to this properly because people talk about this and I'm really trying to like make it understandable because it's something I've experienced, but it's hard to explain. Beliefs are like you can identify the thoughts that limit you, right? You know logically, okay, I have limiting beliefs around 10 grand per month. Like you can know that and you can think, I think it's difficult to do that. I think this. You can really go in and identify what those beliefs are. And then you can go through a rewiring process like in module 3, and you can work to overcome those with new, more empowering stories, figuring out where they came from, bringing in more evidence and all that stuff, and like reaffirming it again and again. That's how you tackle beliefs. But the shadow self and the energy part is different because that's coming from your traumas. And I did a whole thing about the shadow self, but I feel the need to share it again because it's so important. Basically, we all have consciousness, right? When we're born, we've got consciousness. And then when stressful things happen throughout our life experience, our consciousness splits, it fragments to deal with the stressful thing, okay? So it's particularly if something stressful happens and we're not reassured in that moment, like it's not resolved. Basically, if we're hurt in that moment, our consciousness will split to deal with that hurt. And we will have a vulnerable part, basically the part of us that was hurt, that was afraid, that was vulnerable in that moment. And then we'll have a protector aspect that will be born to protect that vulnerable part from ever getting hurt like that again. Okay, so that's the shadow self, is all the vulnerable parts of you that are in the dark. And the crazy thing is, your identity is actually mostly the protector aspects of you that are trying to protect the shadow parts of you that have been hurt. And that's fine if it's aligned with you and if it's supporting your development, your experience, moving towards your goals. But the issue comes in, I've made this in the YouTube video as well, but I need to do it again. So you're trying to go from here to here. It's not going to be like this. Anyone who's done like chased a big goal or tried to manifest something, you know it's not a straight line. Nothing, progress has never been linear. It's never ever been linear. It's going to be more like this. Okay? And then you're going to get there. So what happens is when you're moving to another dimension, you could be cruising for your whole life, feeling like you just are who you are and you're fine, and you have no unconscious shadow parts of yourself, unaware of them, completely unaware. They're in the dark. But you set a goal, and that goal is triggering to a shadow part of you because that part of you is scared of something in that dimension or just doesn't resonate with that dimension. So that part of you gets triggered in order for you to become aware of it so that you can clear it, so that you can move to the next level. So it is like, it's a divinely orchestrated thing, but it feels like hell. And I don't know, does anyone know what I'm talking about here? Does anyone have an experience with this where they've had like things fall apart right before they have a breakthrough, or they set a goal and then suddenly like all this unconscious stuff starts coming up? Because it's something that if you don't know what's going on, it can feel like almost like it's a sign to not continue and to stop going for your goal. Well, it's actually a sign that you're being energetically primed to let go of the things that don't resonate with your goal, okay? So if you were to go from here to here, like the amount of stuff that you might have to release would just be overwhelming. So it'll probably happen in phases and levels. So first you're going to come up here. So I gave this example, I think in the YouTube video, but let's say, for example, you want to start making content and you've got a whole load of fears and traumas around being seen, being heard, being rejected, being criticized. Maybe you were bullied. Maybe you were ignored when you were a child. All of these little things create subtle shadow parts of you that are going to be triggered in subtle little ways. So you need to begin overcoming those parts. So what might happen is something could happen that's going to really specifically get you to overcome that specific fear of just showing up online and making one video, right? Then you're going to do that, right? So you're going to get triggered. You're going to have to overcome that. You're going to overcome it. And then you come up here and you're able to post. But let's say the next thing is you're not posting anything you actually care about because that is being seen too much. So then something will happen again to bring up that unconscious part of you again. You'll have to deal with that. And then once you release that, you can move forward again to the next level, whatever that is. So maybe that's doing longer form content, or I don't know, doing like podcast hosting or something. So slowly but surely, you can start unraveling the stuff that's blocking you from where you want to go. And the key thing to know is you're not crazy if stuff is coming out in purging right after you've set a goal, right as you're moving towards a goal. You're literally just being made aware of parts of your consciousness that are unconscious in the dark that cannot come with you to the level that you're trying to go to. And I had this happen to me again this week. And I actually took notes as I was in this like whole purging process because I wanted to write down what you can actually do, right? When you're in that, when you feel terrible and you're getting triggered and you feel like everything's going off track, what you can actually do is journal for a really long time, sit with yourself, go out in nature, scream, cry, throw up, do whatever you need to do, but don't resist. If you start resisting how you feel, you're screwed. You're screwed. So, like, you can prolong this as long as you want to if you want to just keep resisting it. You're just going to keep like putting it off and putting it off, and it's not going to go away. So, I had this where I had a certain part of me that was coming up, and I was like, no, no, no. Even me knowing who's happened, like, this has happened a few times to me. I was like, no, no, I just feel bad. I just feel bad. It's fine. It's fine. Didn't want to deal with it. Didn't want to accept that it was happening. And then everything in my life started to feel forced and bad because I was resisting everything. Okay. So, the most important thing, if you're having this happen, if you're getting triggers and things coming up after you've set a goal, is to literally just have compassion for yourself and not resist. Realize you're being prepared. You're being made aware of something that was unconscious. Because if you were never made aware of it, then your energy would never be able to shift to the point that you can move to the dimension that you want to move to. Because when your energy shifts, your reality shifts. The end. Okay. Your energy has to shift for your reality shift. So this is what's happening. If this has happened to anyone before, let me know in the chat because I, yeah, I've spoken to people and I know this happens and it feels bad. It feels crazy. But you need to know that it's not, you've not done anything wrong. You're literally just purging. I think April was also a month of purging. I saw a video about that. I don't always believe in those videos. I try not to scapegoat, but apparently it was a month of a lot of purging. So yeah. And I went through about 4 times and I was even gaslighting myself this last time being like, no, 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 I just feel bad. No, 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 it's not. Your energy doesn't lie. Like if there's something coming up energetically to be purged, that is valid. Like this is another thing. Just because you can't logically put words to how you're feeling, it doesn't make it any less real. Okay? So you have to kind of roll with whatever's happening and don't resist it and try to like logic your way around it. So that is one thing that came up this week just about the shadow. Then I want to get into what the whole shadow thing was for me that was coming up. So I don't even know where to begin with this. This is like a really big thing. But basically, I had to call myself out on all the ways that I was bullshitting myself and not being authentic. And this is something that can only come with awareness, but I want us to do an awareness exercise together right now. So if you don't have a pen and a piece of paper, go and get one because you're going to need to write some stuff down. And basically, we're going to go through. I might have to erase this because I want to explain this fully, properly. I'm trying to think of how much to zoom this out because this is big. So I'll let everyone get their pen and paper first before I go into it. Oh no, my lights. Oh, this is the problem of studying. There we go. I just literally threw this up, so bear with me. Okay. Right. So how much will I zoom this out? I just posted a YouTube about this, so that goes more in depth about everything that I've realized in the last week. But I know a lot of you are, some of you know what your like alignment is, some of you know what your purpose is. I know some of you don't. And another realization that I had during this whole thing, I was able to observe basically how a different level of consciousness affects your clarity because I was observing it in myself. And I knew it because I'd experienced it before, but it was really kind of cool to like just really go through that experience again and notice how it made me think differently. So because I was triggered and I was frustrated and I was in a lower state of consciousness, like my emotional state was more fear-based than it normally is, which used to be my predominant emotional state. I could not visualize, I could not think of my goals, I could not get excited about anything to do with even like with my work that I love. Like this is literally so aligned for me. It usually lights me up. I could not get excited about any of it. And the thing that I realized is when you're in those lower states of consciousness, it is impossible to align with your like heart-led dream life. It's so difficult. And when you're in those states, you're basically going to be under the control mostly of your ego self rather than operating from like your soul and your intuition. And the decisions you make are going to probably be mostly fear-based decisions based on, is this going to look good? Is this going to mean that I'm XYZ, successful, perfect, good enough, valid? So the kind of it is kind of linked to this, but let's just say down here you've got fear, um, shame is the lowest one, and then up here you've got love, acceptance, and all of that. So basically, what I have figured is when you're down here in the lower vibrational emotions of shame and fear, your perception of what's possible gets so narrow. And I've said this before, but I've just lived it again. So I'm going to say it again. Your perception of what's possible gets so narrow and you're not seeing clearly. You are not seeing the full picture. You're not seeing all the possibilities. So there's an infinity of possibilities for you, for your life at any given moment. Like your whole life could transform in a week, in a month, in the next couple of hours. There is an endless amount of possibilities for you right now in this moment. But your state is going to determine what you can actually perceive. And when you're down here, basically, you're going to be creating a life and making decisions from fear. When you're up here in the energy of acceptance and love, you're going to be making decisions that are basically going to be so much more creative and aligned. And those really are the ones that are going to take you to your most fulfilled timeline and your most fulfilled life. Like, even if we look at, for example, money, right? You're going to be more successful when you're up in this energy because you'll be thinking about giving to other people from a place of wanting to give value. It's not going to be for validation. So the value that you create is going to be completely different and way more impactful. And when you give value like that, you receive more value back to you. That is the law, okay? So when you're down in ego, you're going to be trying to think of things to give value about for validation or just to look good or just to get something back, which is never going to be as impactful as giving from a state of love and wanting to just genuinely share and help and connect with people, okay? So that is something that's so important to know. And literally, I want you guys to know that I've done so much inner work and I've come so far. And I still, so long as I'm continuing to grow and set big goals, I still have shadow parts of me coming up that sometimes make me default into a lower state of consciousness where I stop getting a vision for a few days, for a week. I stop getting my excitement because I fall back into my ego and I fall back into perfectionism and worrying about how things look. So it's a lifelong journey. And I think a lot of people come into this space and they want to like change their life in a week when you should really be thinking of it like it's a practice. It's just something that you're going to include in your expression, in your life, in your experience, like journaling, right? It's not like, okay, I'm going to journal for 2 weeks and I'm going to fix myself. No, it needs to become part of your identity, part of who you are. Because if you're going to keep growing, there's going to be continuous stuff that you need to shed, that you need to overcome. Your identity is going to have to keep shifting to facilitate that growth in your reality. And I was resisting so much because, and that's how my ego ended up sneaking in and taking over because I was like, I've already done all of this work. Like, I had the perfectionism thing coming up again, and I was like, you motherfucker, I've already done this. Like, I've done this already. And then I realized, okay, I need to stop resisting it. Obviously, there's another part of it getting triggered for some reason. So let me sit with it. And you know, the day that I said, let me sit with it, I sat with it, didn't figure it out. I had to spend like a day or two not knowing what the hell was going on. And then the next day, I woke up and I was like, oh, and literally, this got absolutely rinsed. I was like, okay, it's this, go. And you write it down and you stream of consciousness and you figure out what the hell is going on with you. But self-awareness is the key to all of this, okay? Because mastering yourself is mastering your reality. So it's all about looking within and seeing if you are down here, if you are in your ego, if you are getting caught up in validation, in perfectionism, in worrying about how you look, in worrying about what people will think, in trying to fill a void, in trying to get material things to fill a void. Ask yourself why the void is there. Instead of chasing and having this kind of false persona to try and fill that void, ask yourself why the void is there. And this brings me to my next point, which is I woke up to how much my ego had kicked in and had snuck in and was getting me to chase like perfectionism and validation. And it was pulling me away from my truths without me realizing what was happening. And it's a very sneaky, energetic thing that can happen, but the exercise, the awareness exercise that we're going to do right now is I want everyone to identify what bullshit are you feeding into that doesn't actually resonate with you. Because up here, you're authentic. You're not playing a persona. You're not feeding into things just for validation. You're being yourself. That is a huge component of being in these higher frequency emotions. You're being yourself. You're not overly worried about how it looks or what people think. So I want you to just take stock right now. What have you been feeding into that doesn't resonate with you? What have you been doing that doesn't actually resonate with you? And you can write these things down, like the things that you've been doing lately that you don't really care about. Because I realized I was watching, I did my detox, which by the way, if any of you were on the call last week, that detox kickstarted this whole thing because I was just sat with myself and I was like, oh my God, I had to become so aware of all this stuff, right? Because I stopped distracting myself. But I have been watching content that I don't even like that. Like I was like, this doesn't resonate with me. I was reading a book that I just thought would be a good book to read because it would make me, I don't know, intelligent to read a book like that. I didn't like the book. Like it was giving me nothing. And the thing that I want you to get here is you will be your most powerful, your most loving, your most aligned self when you follow what feels right to you and you let go of everything else. Like that is the ticket to your dream life. That's the only way to your most aligned life. Nobody else can give you advice because they're in their body, in their consciousness, in their brains. You've got to give yourself advice. Like literally, You came here with a unique brain. Nobody has a brain that's like yours. Nobody had an upbringing that was like yours. Nobody has a past. Nobody has inner strengths. Nobody has intuition. Like, nobody is you. So you've got to live your life in authenticity. Because if you don't, what happens is, and this is what I've experienced, if you start feeding into like operating out of your ego or looking for validation and worrying about what other people think, and you start basing your decisions around that and around fears and insecurities, you're going to move away from your truth, your true self, the true character that resonates with you that you want to embody. And your intuition, it's going to be very hard for you to follow that intuition. You're still going to have it, but your ego is going to swing in every time you get a feeling for anything. And it's going to go, well, no, you better do this because if you don't, then that means you won't be cool or you won't be this or you won't be that, right? So when you're in a habit of listening to your ego and your fears over your intuition, you're really robbing yourself of a magical experience, honestly. And you're robbing yourself of a life of flow, of presence, and of actually feeling your worth. Because if you're not being authentic, you're not going to know actually how valuable you truly are when you are in your truths. And when you're making decisions in line with your intuition, you're not worried about the fears and the egos and how it looks. That intuition, your relationship basically with your intuition is going to get very strong. And it's going to just guide you to the most amazing things. And if you haven't experienced this, then you won't really know what I'm talking about. But it is the craziest thing. As someone, I've experienced it for an extended period of time, and then I was not experiencing it the last week or two. And it is literally night and day. Like, life gets to be easy when your intuition is on and when you're making decisions in accordance with your truth. And when you're in the habit of doing that and of listening to your feelings and validating yourself and following what you want, your intuition is going to tell you the most subtle little things to do, and it's going to bring you so much joy. So, for example, you wake up in the morning and your intuition is going to go, this is what you're wearing today. Like, I just have a feeling this is what you're going to wear today. You're going to wear that thing. It's going to feel great. It's going to feel right. Then your intuition is going to tell you, you need to go over here and do this thing. Like, you need to take a walk this way today. You won't know why, but you go and do it. And there's something for you when you walk there, some perspective shift, some type of energy. There's a smell in the air that like triggers a good thought or a good feeling, and that spirals into something else. Like, there is a butterfly effect when you follow your intuition and your feelings and your truths and what you want. It brings you to your alignment and your fulfillment. Your ego, your insecurity, that voice in your head that's just getting you to do things because it will look good to other people or it will mean you're successful, that's not going to bring you to your fulfillment and your alignment. It's just not. What is asking yourself, well, why do I feel the need for validation in the first place? What part of me is craving perfection and why do they need that? Where did that come from? Okay. So we were doing an exercise. Where are you feeding into stuff that does not resonate with you? In what way are you pretending in your life? Just write down whatever comes to mind because it's so important that you become aware of this stuff. You don't realize how much you're robbing yourself of your power by not being authentic and just standing by your truths. Okay, another question is, in what ways are you denying your truth? Okay, so for me, I was denying my truth. I was listening to the content that I don't care about, creators that I never resonated with because I thought it would make me smarter or something. A book that I didn't care about because I thought if I read this book, I'll seem intelligent, right? I was worried too much about how I was coming across on social media when that is not the reason why I fucking started on social media in the first place, right? And it was my ego was hijacking my alignment and my purpose. My ego was coming in and saying, well, you need to be special at this because there was times in your life that you didn't feel special. And if you don't get these views and if you don't get this, and it was da 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 da, and it needs to be better, it needs to be better, it needs to be better. So then my perfectionism completely snuck in and took over and hijacked this thing that I was just doing because it's aligned and I love it. And then I came out of my authenticity with it. I came away from my truth and why I was actually doing what I'm doing. And then the energy was off. And then my vision turned off. And then I couldn't create like I wanted to, right? So ask yourself, in what ways are you denying your truth? How are you looking at things that you know is not really how you want to look at things? So I was getting an inkling for this before I did my detox. I noticed I was starting to feel resentful around other creators. And then comparison started to slip in, which it was never there before. And I was like, there's something that's not aligned with my character, with who I am, with the person that I want to show up as in the world. What is that? What is that? Where is that coming from? Right. But you need to be honest with yourself about these little things that are coming up in your energy. These little things that you say, you need to catch yourself and ask yourself, well, where is that coming from? Is that really me? So the other side to this is we're going to write down very clearly what are your truths, okay? Because it's good to have a little baseline to come back to. So you know, no matter what's going on externally, no matter if there's like some big sexy opportunity or something like drawing your attention this way or someone like trying to trigger you or something toxic happening, you know your truths. So you know how you're going to react and you know what you're going to embody. Okay, so you need to have like a base camp of this is who I am, no matter what's going on outside me. Okay, so for me, it was like, okay, I had to come back to my why, which was my initial reason for starting even making one video. Was like, if I could just help one person deal with the stuff that I've dealt with and overcome, that's my why. Okay, so I had forgotten that and gotten so worried. My ego was feeding into all of this stuff. No, I had to write down, well, what is my why? And really get clear on that. And then realize that that's what's driving me. That's what's bringing me fulfillment. That's what's going to align me, right, in this life. So if you want to write down right now, what are your values? And you can think of this as well, like, what character do you want to embody that feels like truth to you, that feels like this is the light that I want to share with the world while I'm here intuitively? I'll give you a couple of minutes to write that down. And this can be anything from like from a moral perspective, it can be how you treat people, it can be literally just the things that you like, you can write that down. The things that you make time for, any little thing that comes up. And when you're done, you might have a little look at that and a little think about what ways have you been denying this character? Don't give yourself a hard time about it. Just identify it. Now realize, okay, maybe you've put down like this absolute Captain America amazing individual here on the page. Realize that if you've not been showing up as that, there's a reason. It's serving a part or multiple parts of you to be showing up in the way that you have been showing up. That is always the key thing to remember. So for me, I had to, like, it's so tempting to kind of skirt around the real core thing that's driving a pattern or a behavior. So when I started pulling out all of this perfectionism kind of tendency I was having, this overthinking, this need to be seen a certain way, I was like, okay, well, what is it? What is it? What is it? Where is it coming from? And I had to go pages and pages into my journal. And I'm telling you guys this because I need you to know sometimes it takes this much reflection, even if you've done years of inner work, okay? But it's worth it, okay? So I had to go into my journal and I had to be like, right, what is it? What am I like, what am I getting? If I were to be perfect, if I were to get this perfect outcome that I don't even know what it is, but let's just pretend it's 5 million subscribers and all the success in the world, what would that mean? What would that heal? Right? So anything that you're chasing, you want it for a reason. You think it's gonna heal something internally. You think it's gonna make up for some void, something that you feel you might be lacking, something you feel you need redemption on or justice on. So if you're showing up in a way that you don't prefer, that doesn't resonate with this character, this truth, these values, it's serving a part of you to be like that. And you got to go like right in there. So I had to really go in and really ask, okay, well, which version of me needs this validation? Which version of me is it? And I had to think about it. And I went right in and I pulled out the 14-year-old version of me. I pulled out where it came from. I pulled out all the times that I didn't feel important, didn't feel heard. And I had to go to those memories and sit with that part of me and be like, you are important. You can let this go. Right? So this is what I mean. You need to get vulnerable with yourself and stop running. Realize where this stuff is coming from, because otherwise it's going to unconsciously limit you without you knowing why you're acting the way you're acting, why you're chasing these things that you know don't really resonate with you, but you still feel the need to chase them. So the shadow work meditation in module 4 will help you with that, but also just doing a process like that in your journal by yourself. Write down like, okay, where could this be coming from? Why do I feel like I need this thing? Which part of me would it serve if I got this thing? What would it mean to that part of me? Where was that part of me born? What happened? Like, what hurt is this trying to solve? Right? And don't be afraid to really like revisit it and write it down because that's what's going to release it. And once you identify that part, so the thing about this is you can think about like your inner child. This is like inner child healing as well. But like you can picture. So for me, for example, in that situation, I was able to vividly picture me when I was 14 and I was able to look at her and be like, oh yeah, she needed this, right? And have like a moment of like an internal conversation with her where I could validate her, where I could give her love, where I could tell her this wasn't your fault. You weren't wrong, whatever she needed to hear, right? And give her the reassurance and the boost that she needed to be able to let go of craving this external validation, right? So you can do that. That's what I do in that meditation, the shadow work meditation. It's literally about sitting with different parts of you and validating them and reassuring them and telling them that you hear them and you're there for them. And it's crazy because we think that we just like mosey through life and everything just kind of happens and we just move on and it's fine. But we store these things in our energy, in our body. Like, think about the amount of stressful things that we go through. It's insane. Like, and we don't do anything to resolve it. Like animals shake when stressful things happen. I've got two little puppies. I've mentioned it a million times, but like they'll have a big fight and then they'll do a big shake and then they'll walk away happy, like nothing happened, and they'll move on to the next thing. But we don't, we store things. Like we'll be sitting in work, our boss comes over and tells us we're a piece of shit, and then we just go back to work. And it's like, that's in your energy. You've stored that. You need to let that out. You need to visit that part of you. You need to let them know it's okay. You can move on. You need to give them the reassurance that they're lacking. And then you'll be able to move forward free from whatever pattern is being born from that. So that's your ego's need, basically, is coming from basically the identity that was born to protect these shadow parts of you. And it's going to have you kind of veering down all these streets and you're not really sure why, but you're just going to feel like you need these patterns or you need these things or you need people around you or habits or whatever. When you really, what you really need to do is ask why, where is that coming from? Because really what you need is to be yourself fully and stand in your truths fully. That is when you will literally be able to just have your intuition guide you through life and bring you to the stuff that's actually meant for you.